More discussion on privacy, security, and social media. This is MacVoices. This edition of MacVoices is supported by SaneBox. Organize your inbox and never waste time on email again. Sign up today at sanebox.com/MacVoices to save $25 on any subscription. Welcome to MacVoices. This is the talk of the Apple community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. This is part 2 of a mega panel discussion on privacy, advertising, social media, Apple, Facebook, Google, and all the related topics. Some really great questions were asked, some really interesting answers were given, and hopefully the most important thing here is that you think about what you are doing when you are sharing information, when you're surfing online, whatever you're doing online. So we're going to go right back to the panel and continue the discussion.
Amazon's even a little different than what Google is doing.
They have a lot of data on you
doing
too,
with their data. Yeah.
I can't tell you what anybody's doing. I don't have proof. But I have this real expensive cognitive neuroscience and psychology degree to say what they can do. When I have enough information, I can't say I'm going to use this to manipulate Warren. I can't say I'm going to use this to manipulate Guy or Kelly. What I can say, because most of this research is done on these gross averages on a bell curve, what I can say is I want to manipulate people who share 80% of this similarity with Kelly. Will Kelly probably be in that group? Probably. And I can do these nudges. I can also do them at times when people are more vulnerable. I do think Amazon does do that. Late at night, we're more susceptible to things like impulse buying. We do not have the same self-control. And to pretend like I am this logical creature who chooses what I want to buy, that is justification. We're not logical creatures. Occasionally we can implement it, and that's awesome. And it's not a judgment, but that information absolutely can be used against you. Yes, it can be is something as extreme as voting. But I also have serious concerns about companies like 23andMe. What are you doing with this data about the fundamentals of my genetics? Because you can make huge assumptions, and I never did that test. Just enough other people who share some genes with me did it, and now you have all the information you need. Because of the way these statistics go, there is so much you can do, and I don't believe that there's such a thing as informed consent. There's only consent.
Now, I'll hit. You just talked about the advertising and impulse buying. That happens all the time. People make comments on Instagram. You know, they're scanning through their Instagram page. Oh, look at that! I can buy, and then I got to get off Instagram. I'm buying too much stuff because they're seeing that stuff that's coming up because they see what you're searching for all the time. I mean, the same thing happens on Facebook. I see Amazon ads all the time. Obviously, something I had looked at probably the day or two before, and the same thing. It's an impulse of, I end up looking because it's something, this looks interesting. And then
if I show the doorstops to Kelly enough, will she eventually buy more? And I just have to catch her at just the right weak moment, and there she goes. Okay, not doorstops, but pick something Star Wars themed.
If it's a Star Wars doorstop, you're done.
Star Wars doorstop.
Yeah, she already has door keys. Just saying,
100 of them.
Yeah,
is that keys or dorkies?
Brittany's only worried about them because then I'm going to text her and go, look at these little cast metal Death Stars I got to hold the doors open. Aren't they amazing?
Something that Warren, I think it was Warren brought it up earlier that I wanted to comment on. We were doing the check-ins, we were doing all this stuff, and we didn't understand the implications of it because it was fun. It was fun to, let your friends know where you were. It was fun to check in and start collecting, that I've been to all 25 burger joints in my town. And they did every little incentive. You get a badge, a burger for a badge or something. And excuse me. And we didn't understand what was happening. To David's point, I'm not sure we understood what was happening with Instagram. When brands get on there and post pictures that are really alluring. I mean, if you're Kelly and Brittany, they're Star Wars things. If you're a lot of the rest of us, they're geeky things, they're hardware. If you're Guy Searle, you post a mic, he's going to buy it. No question about it.
Yeah.
And so, and there you go. And so, Warren, to your point, your comment too about magazines, and catalogs in the old days. Well, yeah, and that's where mailing lists get gets sold, because if I subscribe to a mailing list about glass blowing, then somewhere that's going to be of value to someone, and I'm not getting paid for it.
Yeah, but this has gone on for since the beginning of time, since the beginning of advertising. I mean, I'm sure when the first commercial came on, television in the 50s, people were like, what the hell is this? And why are they trying to sell me something? I mean, it's just, this is how, advertising works. They wouldn't do it if it didn't work. And I think, David was saying about the ads that come up in Facebook, or when, Kelly sees something on Amazon that she wants. This is how people think. And that was to, Brittany's point, that's how we're programmed. We don't realize we want something.
Advertising, just for the record. I think it can fund things that otherwise would never get a voice.
Right, but the thing you were worried about, before the internet was on the home shopping network before the internet, right? Everybody, instead of saying I have to get off, Amazon, it was I have to stop watching the home shopping network because they're buying things at 11 o'clock at night. I mean, this is how we work.
I can be opposed to the home shopping network too, though.
But services and stores won't survive if they couldn't advertise because nobody, would know about them.
I'm not opposed to advertising. Let me put that out there. I'm with Brittany on this. I'm not against advertising, but the ad on TV is fine. The ad in the magazine that I bought because I'm interested in that, the ad they put in the comic book, that's fine because I made that choice for that transaction. Somebody else went, I want to advertise to everyone who buys Star Wars magazine. And so I go buy Star Wars magazine and they know that there's a certain kind of person who's a Star Wars fan, for example, who bought that magazine. And now I want to advertise these things to them. And
so if you're in a Facebook group of Star Wars fans and you see a advertisement for something with Star Wars to buy, that is beneficial.
The magazine doesn't know how old I am, that I'm a woman, that I live in Oregon, that
I bet they wish they did.
That I'm on Facebook at this time, whatever.
The magazine does know that you live in Oregon, but
that's true.
Society,
if I subscribe,
and that was a big
and they
way
have your address too.
Addresses is the big way that they did targeting. It's pretty much the only way that they did before this happened. But society has definitely, before all this, has had, there's been restrictions on advertising before. You can't advertise cigarettes on TV or hard liquor. So, it's not necessarily a binary thing. This is a new medium with new things, and we're working our way. Society, never says anything goes. So clearly there's lots of advertising on social media that, it's probably a win-win, there's things, for example, like on Amazon, I can find things that I never would have found and they make my life better. But it can't be unrestricted. And right now it's just like whatever Zuckerberg says goes, and there's no authority over him whatsoever. And society is starting to say, what? Maybe we don't give unlimited authority to Mark Zuckerberg. Maybe we need, as a society, we got to decide some of those things through our mechanism of governance that we have for everything else.
I want to throw in Paul in the YouTube chat room says this is far greater than advertising, and I think that's one of an important point. That advertising in one thing, focused advertising, like Kelly was talking about, in a magazine or something of that nature, that's another. This is a whole lot more focused because they know a lot more about you. Has anybody? I just started reading this book last week because of this controversy. Has anybody read The Attention Merchants by Tim Wu?
That sounds perfect for me. I'll go look it up.
On Amazon.
I will put I will put a link in the show notes. This is a really, really interesting book. About half of it is historical, and kind of tells you about how we got here, and then we get into more of the modern era. So if it gets a little long in the tooth when it comes to World War I and II, just go with it because it's a good basis for where it goes. So, Jeff, you've been unusually quiet with all of this. What do we do? I mean, what should we do? What can we do to protect ourselves other than just say, I'm getting off Facebook, I'm getting off Twitter, I'm getting off Amazon, I'm getting off Google?
I mean, this is a case where the genie's already out of the bottle. So it's not like if you're going to have any sort of online presence, then you're going to be tracked, and then information is going to be used in different ways. So, I mean, you could set up a computer that's on a different network and it's running through a VPN, and you're using Tor, and you're doing everything you can to mask yourself, but that's just not realistic. So, I mean, you can limit what you're sharing intentionally, like don't check in places, and all of those quizzes that come up on your social media platforms. Don't take the quizzes, and all those things that say, hey, fill this in with all the places you've been and your first pets, and don't do those things.
Yeah.
But I do want to add one thing to or loop back, I suppose, to Warren's original question, because Warren, we totally left you hanging. You asked for something tangible, and all we gave you were these nebulous they, people, them, and
we don't know. And that's the answer I got. Is I don't know what they have of me, and I don't like that, which is understandable. But nobody said they have this on me, and this is going to come to bite me.
Okay, so I wanted to give you a tangible that we still don't know everything from, which in and of itself is kind of scary. Cambridge Analytica. And what Cambridge Analytica did was harvest data through Facebook, and then use that data to craft advertising and media, like social media content, to manipulate the perspective and decisions that voters were making. And specifically, they were using the data that they harvested through Facebook, and also through a series of the online quizzes to be able to figure out how to properly craft this message to be as effective as it could be. And that was directly involved in the campaigns of Ted Cruz and Donald Trump, not this election, but the prior election, so 2016.
So I would interject here that on a lot of this, my position, I guess boils down is, people should be aware and have control over how much information they disclose. The fact that, somebody wants to sell you something or wants to influence your view on a particular candidate, that's the nature of advertising. That's been going on forever. Chuck mentioned or read the viewer's comment about the Intention Merchants by Tim Wu. Yes, we've all known that the key thing, the key value of podcast advertising is people voluntarily give their time to that show and to that host. So that's very unlike most of the mass media, where they're trying to use whatever, to try to break through and just grab a tiny piece of your time. So I don't have any philosophical problems with how the data is used. My issue is it should be more of an informed consent, sort of relationship of, I'm going to disclose this, and that's a trade I'll make, or instead give me another trade where I can pay you money and you don't track me. So, in many ways, I think that some of this just may be, and this is a hypothesis and speculation on my part, that what we've seen is from, as Jeff was saying, from the last the 2015, 2016 election cycle, going into this one, I think Facebook unfairly is probably the whipping boy of a lot of politicians. Ironically, both on the left and right, are critical of them for different parts of their policies that they disagree with. So, to the extent that it has almost equal outcry, I'm thinking that they're probably doing a good thing. They're probably centrist. But again, I think they should just be more transparent about what data they collect and how they use it, because Google has that. Google has the ability. You can see what does Google know about me? What does Google know, and show me all the searches I've done from the time Google just started. So to that regard, I think Google is a better corporate citizen, and Facebook and Zuckerberg has been notorious of he apologizes and we just didn't do as good as we need and we'll try to do better, and he's been doing the same horsepucky nonsense for a decade in terms of just continuing to abuse people's privacy while he and his company amasses more. And with that, I pass the mic back to somebody else.
I want to get Guy in. I do want to say one thing, Mark, and that is you've said you'd like to pay somebody so that you can't be tracked. I think it'd be interesting if and Facebook did this one time in a very shady way, but pay somebody like Warren, who says he doesn't mind being tracked. Pay him for his information and then let him run rampant on the internet. That would be an interesting business model. Today's Mac Voices is supported by SaneBox, AI for your email. Dealing with email is one of my top 3 productivity challenges, and I'm betting it's at the top of your list as well. Spam filters are great right up to that point that they stop working, or arguably worse, that point where they send important emails to spam. That's exactly why I use, and you should use, SaneBox. Calling SaneBox a spam filter isn't accurate because it is really AI for your email. SaneBox not only learns what is and isn't important, but can also be trained. And it isn't an all-or-nothing proposition. The first time you open SaneBox, it scans your inbox, leaves what it thinks is important there, and puts the rest in the Sane Later folder for your review. From there, you select anything that is important and drag it back to the inbox. Boom, SaneBox is trained on that email. The reverse is true. If something is in your inbox, you can train it to go to Sane Later. Or if an email sneaks through that you simply never want to hear from again, you can drag it to the Sane black hole, and you will never hear from it again. That's one of my favorite SaneBox features. I don't have to unsubscribe from unwanted emails and wait and wonder whether it will actually happen. SaneBox works first time, every time. All this and a whole lot more is what you get when you visit sanebox.com/MacVoices to sign up for the email service that I consider essential. Even better, when you use sanebox.com/MacVoices, you get $25 off any subscription package. sanebox.com/MacVoices. You could be in control of your email in just a few minutes. sanebox.com/MacVoices. Thanks to SaneBox for their support of Mac Voices. Guy, you had some interesting points in the chat.
A lot of this is just smoke and mirrors. The thing is, people want to be part of a community. And Facebook and Google and so many of these other companies, they prey on this because they know people want to be part of a community. And this goes all the way back to the very beginning of the internet. What was one of the premises of saying, get on the internet because it's going to be great, because you're going to be able to talk to people all over the world, and you're going to be able to see and do all of these things that you would never be able to do regularly from your man cave or wherever it is that you set up your computer. So you go all the way back to AOL, for example. People were actually paying AOL to track data on them. And then AOL kind of faded because they never really changed their business model. And then we had the next phase, which was MySpace. And then that bled over into Facebook. And the thing is, Facebook completely mishandled this, but not in the way that you might think. Apple is doing what they can, not necessarily because they want to keep their users safe, but in their own self-interests, because the time is coming. You look at what is it? The law in the EU, the GDR. What is that? GDRP. How do you
GDPR.
GDPR? How do you protect yourself? You protect yourself by saying, "Look, we're doing everything that we can. It's all of these other companies that are doing it. This is what Apple is doing, and that's great. We get a benefit from this." However, now having said that, what Facebook probably should have done was just say, "Oh, okay, we'll go ahead. We'll go ahead and we'll let people opt out of this and opt out of that." And probably 80 to 90% of the people, once being confronted with this choice, would still have hit the button to allow Facebook to gather this data. And the whole thing would have just gone away. Because the people themselves who want to be part of this community, that want to know what Aunt Bertha is cooking on Sunday for dinner, they would say, "Oh, yeah, that's fine. I don't care. I don't care if they know that I like hot dogs with my popcorn or A&W root beer or whatever. They don't care." So we do this to ourselves. And it's not the people that are in this room right now that are greatly affected by it, because we see it. We see it, and we do what we can to protect ourselves from it. But it's the masses that just keep pushing that button. They keep pushing the button to allow themselves to be manipulated. And what can be done about it? Nothing. There's really nothing that you can do, because they'll still keep hitting that button. It's like, what was it? There was the study of the rat that was in a trap, and it was like, as long as it kept hitting this one button, it would keep getting a treat. Well, it would keep hitting that button over and over again. It didn't matter. It was going to die of obesity, because it knew every time it hit that button, it was going to get a treat. Well, that's what Facebook is. Facebook is a treat to the great unwashed masses that are out there. And they're going to keep hitting that button. And that's what Facebook should have done from the very beginning, was said, "Look, yeah, we're gathering all this data on you, and it's so that we can target advertising, and we can do this and that. And yeah, okay, we're going to do this and we're going to do that. And all you have to do is just hit that button, and we won't bother you about this anymore until the next time somebody makes a point. And then, oh, here's the next button. Hit this one too." And it just goes on and on.
Let's see, Jim, you're up.
Yeah, and
Next.
Guy's comments kind of tie right into actually a friend of mine texted me who's watching, and he was saying, Facebook, they make their money on engagement. Their algorithm is more engagement, and it's sort of what you say, get people to press the button,
Right.
more. And extremism keeps people more engaged, so their algorithm encourages extremism. They don't want you to not press. Their whole thing is press the button more. So what you're saying is the opposite. They want that. And so the Facebook algorithm, the goal is increased engagement at whatever cost to individuals or society. Maximize engagement. So for example, if someone's like somewhat anxious about medicines, they're going to steer them to anti-vax groups. And that's, so it's not so much the advertising, it's that we're going to, we want to manipulate people to keep them more and more engaged. And so we're going to, push them into these, down these rat holes, no matter what the damage is to those people or to society.
As long as they get paid.
As long as they, yeah. So the advertising is just sort of a, that's a side effect. That's not the goal of it. Well, it sort of is, but I mean, their engine is optimized. The more people are engaged, the better they can, more money they can make off the advertising. So whatever it takes to get that, so that being responsible is the opposite, because what you're saying is do things that will reduce engagement. I also was thinking that this is also an area of difference between Facebook and say Google or a lot of other things. Google is not trying to get me to send more emails. But Facebook is like, yeah, we would like you to spend 24 hours a day on Facebook. Every moment we want you on Facebook, and we're trying to do that. So Apple is not really trying to do that. Amazon is not really, and again, all this is degrees. But
YouTube is the Google exception.
I was gonna, okay. that was exactly yeah. YouTube is absolutely, and they have the same problem that they've got a extremism problem of people, Yeah.
Kelly, you want to get something in about follow up to Guy, and then we'll get to Andrew.
Real quick, because Guy was talking about, like, even if Facebook asks you, people are going to hit the button and Facebook is going to do whatever they're going to do. And quite honestly, if we could rewind to when Facebook stopped being for college students and started being for everybody, if they had been upfront then and said, whatever data you give us, we're going to take that and we're going to sell it to advertisers. And then the advertisers are going to get to take that information and give you better ads. That would have been fine. My primary beef with Facebook anymore is not the creepy amount of data they want, the creepy things they do with it, the creepy way they try to collect it, the way they have profiles on every email address. Like, I have an email address that is not the email address I used on Facebook. Facebook has a profile about that email address because everybody said it was okay to upload their contacts. So there's some shadow profile for my other address that Facebook has that probably has a terrifying amount of information just based on people around me who have it. So my big beef with Facebook right now is that they are still not upfront about what they're doing with your data. And so every time we find out about the thing that happens, Facebook goes, shucky darns. I guess you caught us. We really didn't mean to, and we're never going to do it again. And we're real sorry. And that happens time after time after time after time. And quite honestly, like, it's starting to verge on an abusive relationship at this point. And I'm not saying that to be flip, but like, I'm not going to do this again. We're going to make sure we're going to take measures. And the thing they're always apologizing for is not what they did with your data. They're sorry they got caught. They're not sorry they did something crappy with the information that they had about you. And that continues to be the stance. So if it were a thing like Google used to be, don't be evil, and now I think they've changed to they've stolen Dave Hamilton's slogan, don't get caught. Yeah. Like, that feels like that feels like at least an upfront relationship, and I know going in. And that's the thing that I really don't like about Facebook right now, is that they continue to perpetuate this thing that they care about your privacy and they care about leaving your data alone and they care about the relationship they have with you. And then we keep finding out these terrible things that they're doing, and they keep going, shucks. And that's it. That's the whole, like, right now, that's my current beef with them. Like, the whole data thing aside, it's that they never own up to, we did this. We thought it was a good idea. We just get boneheaded statements out of Zuckerberg like, data wants to be free, and of course the whole world needs to know where you are at all times, and that's why you should check in. No. And so, like, really, I feel like that's the rest of it, is that they're continuing to lie about their stance, about their remediation, about what they're actually doing, about what they're doing right now. And so that's really the part that I don't like.
And the people would still hit the button.
Yes. And listen, I want to make one thing real clear here, because we're beating on Facebook, and for some good reasons, because they're highly covered and they've been caught a few times. But there are a lot of other organizations that are doing it, because if there weren't other organizations that are doing it, if you're not on Facebook, you're still going to see ads popping up around the internet wherever you go, because the bots are watching what you're doing and then feeding it to the advertising agencies, who are then selling that information to advertisers, because they know that, Star Wars, Kelly and Brittany are right there. So that
they learned it by watching Facebook.
Amazon learned it by watching me, and they're really good at manipulating me.
And let me interject here, because one of the new things in the new Safari on Big Sur is you can look and it will tell you how many trackers it has disabled, and people should go take a look. Click on that little shield icon and really study it. What I have observed is a lot of the media sites, publishers, they're just contaminated. They're a toxic cesspool of trackers. It's just amazing how many trackers they have.
I've seen over 50 on CNN.
Yeah, I didn't want to name them by name. But
sorry, I lapsed out for a second.
Oh, no, I didn't say they had the most, but I've seen up to and over 50 trackers every time I go to CNN.
No, I wasn't sure. Thank you. I wasn't sure who Mark was talking about.
Oh, if in Safari, and maybe I'm in a minority because I may use Safari instead of Chrome. But
I do too.
they have the feature where they have that little sort of shield, and you click on it, and you give you reports of how many trackers they've blocked in the past week, and you can drill down and you can see how many. You can see who the trackers are, and you can see how many are on each site and which ones are on each site. So the whole entire internet is basically a thing of surveillance. So it's not just, Facebook may be at the top of the pyramid, but there are many other sites that are doing exactly the same thing.
Andrew, you'd said something earlier in the chat, folks. In case you wonder what we're talking about, we have a back channel chat here in Zoom. Andrew, you brought up something about regulation that I thought was interesting.
Yeah, this could open up a whole new level of debate. But a couple of people, I think, have kind of hinted about this, where before the internet, we eventually came up with controls like the FCC and the 7 words you can't say on TV, and now we have something like GDPR, and so maybe it's time people start talking about. We don't have those. I don't think we have those kind of controls on the internet today. You can say those 7 words and more on these platforms, and that's free speech and censorship. But it's a conversation we as a society need to discuss about. Do we need more regulations for the internet, like an American GDPR? Because, can we trust these companies to limit themselves?
That
apparently not.
Really scares me, because the places that do have controls are places I wouldn't want to live in.
Yeah,
like California.
No, I'm thinking North Korea, China, Iran.
Oh, that kind of control.
Yeah.
I was thinking about how sometimes you see a thing where it says, well, if you live in California, we'll let you do this thing that's in your best interest. And I'm like, yeah, clearly laws are needed because only Californians can have this. And mostly I don't get to say that about California.
Oh. This is really interesting. We've gone over time, but I've let it go just because I think this is an important discussion. And Warren, I can't thank you enough for sort of asking some of those questions, because too often it's so easy to go along and just say, no, this is a bad thing, this is a bad thing. You're asking why, and I don't know if we've convinced you or whatever. I know for me personally, I used to think the way I think you are, and it didn't bother me, because I'm not doing anything. And then I start to get things that are annoying to me, and I get an increased volume of them. And I realize that, there is a cost, and maybe it's too late for me, but maybe but Guy's point was really interesting too. And just give us the button. And Guy, I think you're right. I think there'll be millions of people that don't push that button, but give those of us that want the button. But
I think more people than not will hit the button.
That wraps up part 2 in this multi-part discussion of advertising, privacy, and social media. The panel continued. We've decided to run a little bit long because there were still so many opinions being provided and questions being asked and at least attempted to be answered, that we wanted to keep it going. So there will be a part 3 to this. That will be next time on MacVoices. Until then, and as always, I'm Chuck Joyner. Thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Facebook group or like our Facebook page, and get more out of your Apple tech with MacVoices Magazine, free on Flipboard and on the web. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us through either our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MacVoices, or by making a one-time donation via the PayPal link on our front page and in the show notes of each episode. You will join these fine people who help bring you MacVoices. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CacheFly at cachefly.com.